have a guest here today. His name is Jeff, and he can see and hear himself from his side, but we cannot see him. So the moderator and I are working on this, and if you just hang tight and keep us on your screen, we'll figure this out and come back. Okay? So hang tight and we'll figure this out. Okay, thanks everyone. Still figuring it out, everybody. Give us a second here. Oh, boy. I have no clue why this is happening. Candace, do you have any more ideas? He already came out, or left and came back once. I think if I do that, I'm going to have to send you guys a whole new link. Huh. Candace, do you think it would help if I started a different stream and sent you both the link? Okay, so the guest can see me but not hear me. And wow. Jeff, I know this is going to sound weird, but is it possible? Can Babaji help us out at all here? Can he clear the field? Sorry, guys. Candace, do you think I should go out and come in again? I can close Firefox and begin again from scratch if you like. Yeah, Jeff, why don't you try that? Try that. Okay. Oh, I think he already left before he saw your comment. We'll see what happens. So Jeff is gonna go. Well, he's not even on here, but he's gonna, from his end, he's gonna go out and come back in. Thanks for your patience, everyone. While we are waiting, I have some While we were waiting, I have some announcements. So you may remember a couple weeks ago, I had a friend, Melissa Cooley, come on. She was the yoga teacher, and we had technical difficulties that day too, unfortunately, and so she. Orientation selection. So she'll be coming back on. And what was the other thing I wanted to tell you? Oh, Kevin Snow. You remember my mentor? He was the very first show I did. He's going to come back on December 11th. And we'll have another conversation like we did last time. And we'll also be doing a question and answer session. So that's exciting. Still waiting for Jeff to come back in. Candace, on my screen, it says orientation selection not available while live. Oh, there's Jeff, everybody. Now if we can just do split screen. Hey, Jeff. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I don't hear you.
Oh, darn it. Okay, well, we'll keep on.
Oh, funny. But at least I can see. I can see. Yeah, I can see the bars going now. The green bars.
Okay, well, I can hear you. Candace says it may be an equipment issue. She says she can hear me and you both. Oh, but yeah, you can't hear me. Now I can't see you, Jeff. Oh, now I can see you. So Candace can hear both of us, and I can hear, and I can not. I'm sending Jeff a message, everyone. Hear you.
Let me just check my audio output on system preferences. It might be trying to put out my...
Okay, guys, hang in there with us. Candace, I'm going to send you Jeff's last name and see if you can add it.
All right, my audio output is set for my internal speakers. So I don't know why I'm not hearing.
Can you hear me now?
Sure.
How about now? Okay, so I think how this might have to work, everyone, is that I will type questions to Jeff and he can answer them. Oh. One moment. So guys, now Jeff is completely gone. Oh boy. This restream thing is tricky. Let's see if he can go in and come back, or go out and come back in. We may try just doing this. I know Todd Medina from Sology was having some restream problems yesterday. Well, restream was okay with YouTube, but it wasn't working on Facebook. So I'm wondering if I may need to get off Facebook and just broadcast to YouTube. Hang in there, anybody. Oh, I'm fine, she says. Okay. Well, I've been able to see and hear you the whole time. Okay, good. So the moderator is helping. I'm going to send a message to Jeff. I think he's having an equipment issue. Hey, Jeff, I don't know what it might be, but the moderator seems to think maybe you have an equipment issue. Oh, here you are again. Let's see. Okay. Can you hear me? No. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I don't know what to tell you. I go back to Firefox.
Can you try Chrome?
That'll work.
Okay. So today's format is going to be a little different,
Output.
everyone. I am going
Is
to
the
be typing questions for
output
Jeff.
should
So give me a minute here. So first of all, let me type in the question and then I'll introduce him.
Yes, I'm sorry, but yeah, I can even see my microphone working on the input level, but I don't hear anything. I don't see anything on the output. My volume is high. So, okay. If you want to type questions, we can do that.
So there's a Kriya Yoga practice called COBRA breath. And I was introduced to it in February of 2019. And then in August of 2019, I got the COBRA breath initiation. So there's a precursor practice that must be done first. And I did that. And I've been doing it ever since. And this is our guest, Jeff, and he is a master teacher of Cobra Breath. And he teaches it all over the United States and all over Europe. And my first question to him that I typed in the chat box is, how did you come across Cobra Breath? Go for it, Jeff.
So how did I learn about Cobra breath? That's a story. The short answer is I heard about it when I read a book by Sunyata, but the longer answer is, when I was ever since I was a child, I knew that this isn't how life was meant to be and that there had to be more. And I wanted to understand life. Teachers and, even as a child, they're always asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember thinking, like, I'm 5 years old. Why are you asking this? And then, as I got older and I went to college and they want you to declare a major. And I was like, how can you declare a major? How do I know what I want to do until I understand life? And a series of coincidences brought me down to Key West, Florida. And then another series of coincidences brought me into this shop that was like one part tourist kitsch, one part really cool occult and mystical store. And this very dramatic looking man was there. And I started asking him questions. And the short version is, it was at some point, it's like his eyes got really big, like he recognized me. And he started handing me books. And they were all books on Western occult practices, Western mysticism, if you will, the rich science that we know of in the West, or that originated in the West, but has kind of been abandoned because as people break out of Christianity or other Orthodox religions, they generally go to the East. So he gave me these books on this Western mystery tradition. But during that, and it was funny because I was looking for more books on the Native American tradition at the time. And I was like, I don't want these. And he said, you don't understand. I'm not selling these to you. I'm giving these to you. So he gave me this incredible stack of books and tarot decks and made me pay for all the Native American stuff. And I like to say that he gave me what I needed and made me pay for what I wanted. But he mentioned the word Tantra to me, and I had never heard the word Tantra. And I looked at him blankly, and he said, "You don't know what Tantra is?" And I said, "No." And he said, Tantra is the energy behind everything. It's in, it's every mystical system, every religious system. It's there. It's just what name is it under, but it's the masculine energy, the feminine energy, the creative life force, the Kundalini. It's there in every system. And even when he was saying that to me, I didn't know what he meant because I was so green. But then he pulls Sunyata's book off the shelf, The Jewel in the Lotus, and hands it to me. And that's another one of the books he gave me. And so it was in that book was where I first learned about the COBRA breath. But there was years of practicing and preparation before I ever received the COBRA breath. And then a few years after that before I actually met him, because I learned it first from his ex-wife and then directly from him. So that's the medium version of that story.
Okay.
I could go on, or if you have another question, or if you'd like to.
Yeah, so now I'm going to type another question for Jeff.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So this system that's in the Jewel in the Lotus, and where this
wait,
version of the COBRA breath comes from.
One second. So the question that I asked him, everybody, is I'm asking him to talk a little bit about the lineage of COBRA breath. So the you could say human, non-human being named Babaji is the one who brought COBRA breath into the world. And there's a lineage there that includes Paramahansa Yogananda and Jesus Christ. So I'm asking him to talk. I mean, there's more people in the lineage there too. So I'm asking him now to talk about the lineage. Okay, go.
All right. So yeah, this system is called, that I directly teach from, or one of the systems I directly teach from, is called Kriya Yoga Tantric Yoga. So that's a very specialized branch of the spiritual science known as Kriya Yoga. And to break it down very briefly, Kriya literally means action or internal action. It's moving energy internally to create changes in your biochemistry, to create changes in your neurology. So you experience the world differently. I would say you change your perception mechanism, you change the world. And that has been proven by quantum physics. So Kriya means internal action. Jyoti literally means the light of knowledge. It's the Eastern version of the word Gnostic, which means the light of knowledge. And the word agnostic or agnostic means without knowledge. Most people know that word. So the light of knowledge is for those who want to understand how things work. It's not just blind belief, it's understanding. Kriya Jyoti Tantric. Tantra literally means liberation through expansion. There's a lot of other terms out there, and it's been misinterpreted because it incorporates sexual energy and it incorporates physical energy, incorporates the feminine energy. So people get focused on the feminine or get focused on the sexual energy, but it's actually about balance, a balance between the masculine and feminine, and then using that sexual energy to transmute, because it's creative energy. It's not just sexual energy, it's the energy that creates. And so from your sex chakra, it creates another physical human. From your heart chakra, it creates your art. From your crown chakra, it creates the androgynous spirit child, which is that part of you that grows into maturity spiritually. It first began with Babaji, whose name literally means the Great Father, and it's often Babaji Nagaraj, which is the Serpent King, reflecting the Kundalini energy. And the Kriya science had been lost in India for quite some time. And there was a man named Lahiri Mahashaya who was an engineer, and he was surveying for the British Railway in India. And he was surveying for a new railroad in the Himalayas when Babaji manifested in front of him and said, I'm going to transmit Kriya science to you. And so that's where Kriya science was reborn into the world. And to very condense it, one of his disciples was a man named Sri Yukteswar, who was a very, very impressive individual. And then one of his disciples was Paramahansa Yogananda, and many people know Yogananda. And Sri Yukteswar sent 5 disciples to the West. Yogananda was chosen to come to the United States, and he was the most prolific writer and teacher, and so he became the best known. And so of the 5 that went to the West, one went to Australia, I believe, one to the US, I think one to England, and then 2 other places in Europe. And they taught, but most people have heard of Kriya, and yoga actually came west because of Yogananda. And then what's been taken out of that mostly is Hatha yoga and the body practices. But that's just the entry level into yoga, preparing your body for meditation, improving your health so that your body can support you in your spiritual practice instead of distract from it. That's a very short nutshell. And by the way, the word yoga, it comes from the Sanskrit root yug, which means to join or union. And so the science of yoga is about joining you with your higher self or the divine in whatever way you want to describe that. So it's this union of you with creation, really. And so my teacher was Goswami Sunyata Saraswati, but he wasn't born that way. He was born on the south side of Chicago, just like Leroy Brown. And his grandmother was pretty well-known psychic, and she was a friend of Yogananda. And Yogananda taught in Los Angeles mostly. But when they would get together and play music and talk, and of all her grandchildren, Sunyata she recognized as being different, took him to Yogananda. Yogananda recognized him, said, "What I'm teaching the Americans isn't deep enough for this one," and would send him. From like the time he was 12 to 18, he would have to go to India during the summers and come back to the US for school. Then when he turned 18, he was sent east to study full-time until he became a Goswami, and then was sent around the world to teach. So that's how, and then, there was a time that I lived with Sunyata and learned from him. To answer the question about Jesus, so there's the 33 lost years of the Bible, and Jesus traveled and learned in Greece, in the Middle East. He's got different names, Isa and Yeshua, and he was actually initiated in the Great Chamber in the pyramid, and that was an initiation chamber. And the priesthood was called the Jedi, which George Lucas picked up on. So he was a Jedi priest, but he was also, there's records of him in India, Tibet, Persia, etc., where he learned all of the mystical traditions, and they were combined in him. So Jesus is looked at as a member of the Kriya lineage. And if you understand the COBRA breath, if you understand Kundalini energy, if you've studied the Kabbalah, you can see how the COBRA breath and Kriya Yoga is encoded in the Bible, but you need to understand the symbolism that it's coded into. But it's right there, and it's part of Kriya is part of Christianity, and Christianity is part of Kriya, because in the end, it all comes from the same source. And the last thing I'll say about this is it was St. Augustine who said, there always has been and always will be only one true religion, and for a time it'll be known as Christianity. So there's no antithesis between Kriya and Christianity, or really any of the other religions. They all go hand in hand.
So I've written him another question, and he's reading it, and after he reads it, he'll answer it for us.
Just tell me when you're ready. Okay, you're ready. Okay, great. So the mechanics of the COBRA breath, I can't go too deeply into it because it's an esoteric practice for a reason. And the word esoteric literally just means secret. The word occult literally just means hidden. And it was because at a time when if you went against the religious mainstream, you would be burned at the stake. So these teachings had to be hidden. And then, of course, it was a great deal of great coup of propaganda to associate occult with evil. But it literally just means hidden. So this practice is hidden, not because there's anything wrong with it, it's hidden because it's so powerful. The same way you would hide a loaded handgun from your 4-year-old child. They just don't know what to do with it and might end up hurting themselves or hurting somebody else. So these practices are some of the most powerful, and the Cobra Breath itself is the most powerful psycho-spiritual technique I know. It will help you evolve. It will help you grow. It will, I mean, it's scientific. This is a spiritual science. There's no believing or wondering. It's a matter of experiencing. The way it works in general is it's bringing energy up from the earth through the chakras and then back down. And in doing this, we're balancing the masculine and feminine energy. And if you've heard of Sushumna, Ida, and Pingala, that's the 3 courses. So Sushumna is the central channel of the spine. Ida is the feminine channel, and Pingala is the masculine channel. Okay, and really what we want to do is balance the masculine and feminine energies. Because when they're balanced, then the Kundalini naturally rises up the Kundalini tube, and you have this experience. Now the mechanics, I would call it the physiology of enlightenment, if you'd like me to, go into that. So, first of all, the chakras exist in the spine. Okay, what you see in front is a vortex that spirals forward. And the word chakra literally means wheel. And so, but it's actually based in the spine. So as we move energy up and down the spine, it's activating the chakras. And in there is the emotional debris. Okay, and so there's how does the Cobra Breath and how does Kriya help you heal emotionally, and then there's how does it help you grow spiritually. And this whole process works together, because the way I look at it is when you've experienced a trauma that was beyond your capacity to process, it gets stored in your body. And there it sabotages your life. And I'll just give you the Cliff Notes version on this. As you move this energy and you cultivate more energy in your system, it pushes that debris out of the emotional body and up to be observed and to be experienced. Just the same way if you've got dirt in a garden hose and you turn the garden hose on, it's going to blow the dirt out of that hose. If you've got emotional debris in the nadis and the energy circuits of your body, then you start doing these practices and it's going to push that emotional debris to the surface.
For people who don't know, the nadis are the subtle body energy channels.
Okay. So that's, and then you have to observe and experience it. So that's really the essence of how it helps you heal on the emotional level. What we're doing physiologically, spiritually, the physiology of enlightenment, is we're electromagnetizing the cerebrospinal fluid and making that flow more dynamically. And this fluid comes from the reservoir at the base of the spine in the sacrum up into the 3rd ventricle of the brain. And the 3rd ventricle of the brain is where the action happens. And Taoists call that the Crystal Palace or the Shenji Palace. The Hindus call it the Cave of Brahma. So when they say enlightenment happens in the Cave of Brahma, they're not talking about some mystical place in the Himalayas. They're talking about in the middle of your brain, where you have the pineal, the pituitary, and the hypothalamus. So as we bring this electromagnetized cerebrospinal fluid into the Cave of Brahma, the 3rd ventricle, it activates these glands. And then it activates the dormant neurons in the brain, because there's millions of dormant neurons. And at some point, there's an exchange, a spark, and there's an electrical connection between the pineal and pituitary. And there's a chemical connection as they both exchange hormones. And that's when the lights come on. And the corpus callosum in the brain is activated. And that's the bridge between the left or masculine side of the brain and the right feminine side. And this is really the physiological representation of the divine masculine and feminine. And so when this activates, your left and right brains can be active at the same time, and you can become the androgynous spirit child. You're both masculine and feminine. And then the other thing that happens is these dormant neurons begin to spark and activate and light up. And it's these microelectric sparks that feel like the petals of a flower opening up. And that's why you see the image of a huge lotus flower as the crown chakra. And that's what we would call the opening of this crown chakra, is the opening of the 1,000-petaled lotus. Because as you feel these micro charges, as these dormant neurons activate, is when that it feels like this flower opening up, and then you can feel the spiritual energy pouring down as you're connected between heaven and earth. And from there, yeah, you step into a whole new existence. So this is literally changing your brain, changing your nervous system on a physiological level. And from there, you're able to access other dimensions that your brain was intended to be able to access.
Thank you. Give me 1 minute. So
Okay.
now, you guys, I'm going to type him a question.
Hmm.
Give me 1 minute. So the question I'm asking him, everybody, is why it's important to do a 6-month precursor practice, and also why it's important to receive initiation from a lineage holder. And these two questions are very important. That's why I'm asking them. So, oh, he left. He's gone. Oh, well, I hope he comes back. Let's see. Okay, just a minute. Let's see if we can get him back here. And I'm going to send him a message right now on Signal. I don't know what happened, but you just completely dropped off. So can you see if you can come back in? So I find this really interesting. I don't know why. So I've done how many of these now? 5 or 6. And the 2 that I've had glitches on when we were trying to talk about yoga. So I don't know what the hidden meaning is there, but let's give him time to answer this question. And Candace, if you can hear me, can you make this split screen again? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to give... Oh, you can hear me, Jeff? Now you can hear me? But I can't hear you. I can't hear you. So we'll just go with these questions. So in the chat box, I typed another question for you. It says, can you explain the need to do 6 months of Kriya Yoga practice first, and also the importance of receiving the initiation from a lineage holder? Oh, you know what? We can't hear you though. So that's a problem because, okay, so it says the moderator says your mic is not moving. Like when you talk, Maybe try to do it without the headphones. See if that makes a difference. I don't know. I can't hear you, what you're saying. She said your mic is not turning green. Very interesting. Let's see. You know, down below you do you see some icons? Like, do you see a microphone icon? Can you click that and then click it again? If you click it, it'll go off, and then just click it and see if it goes back on. No, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Refresh the page. Okay, so I'm going to try refreshing, everybody. Hold on here. Give me a second. If we get, oh, not me, you. Jeff, refresh your page. Try refreshing your page. The first time you logged in, it let you okay. Thanks for hanging in there, everyone. Jeff will be back with another question. So, okay, he's back. Let's try this again. There we are. Can you hear me? I can't hear him. Ah! Well, let me type Jeff a message. Okay, you guys. So, the moderator has thought of everything she can think of. I've thought of everything I can think of. And what we think it is we think that it's an issue with Jeff's equipment, which is very surprising because, let's see, can you hear me? You can't hear me. Talk. I want to see if I can hear you.
Can you hear me now, though?
I can hear you. Okay. So we'll keep going. Okay. So, look at this question. Scroll down and there's a question. You see it?
All right. I can.
So I asked him, can he please explain the need to do 6 months of Kriya Yoga prior to Cobra Breath practice, and also the importance of receiving the initiation from a lineage holder?
Interesting. So it's showing, yeah. So I can continue to answer your questions, or we can reschedule, or we can do both.
Both.
Okay. So the last question I got was to explain the need of 6 months of Kriya Yoga first. Absolument.
And there's more.
Let me see. Go ahead and send me a message if there's something else. And the importance of initiation from a lineage holder. Gotcha. Absolutely. Okay, so beautiful. Thank you for asking those questions, because that's important. You know, Tantra has become so sentimentalized, and it's become more of like the search for better sex. And it's ironic, and I'll get into that, because Sunyata is actually the one who brought it to the West, and for a time we even stopped using the word Tantra. It's a deep and powerful spiritual system, and it will cause transformation. But there's a lot of people out there just wanting to sell Cobra Breath because there's a name for it. So actually, when Babaji touched pretty much every mystical tradition. So when Sunyata passed the lineage to us, he taught us 5 cobra breaths: a Sufi cobra breath, an Egyptian cobra breath, a Taoist, the Kriya, and the Tantric Kriya. And they all have different effects based on the frequency of those systems. With this Tantric Kriya cobra breath, traditionally you would be in an ashram for 5 years and have multiple initiations before you ever receive this, because they want you to prepare your energetic body to develop the energy circuits so they can handle greater energy, and also to have developed and matured your emotional body and dealt with complexes, neuroses, traumas, dramas that this life, this painful world that we exist in, have impacted you with. And so it was this regulated process to generally help you increase your healing, but also, like I said, your electric circuitry, the nadis in your system, which can get stronger. Now,
Nadis, everyone.
like I said, it's the most potent
are
psycho-spiritual practice that I know of.
Nadis are subtle body channels. So I'm just reminding him here as I'm typing that, he might want to explain something about nadis, because not everybody might not know. Okay.
Right. So the nadis, they would call them similar to the meridians, but they're the energy circuits that run through your system. And some people say there's 72,000 of them. I've never counted, but they're there. And so just imagine, like, when you run electricity through a wire, everything's fine. But if you run too much electricity through the wire, then there's resistance, and it can heat the wire and burn out the circuit. Very similar. So the difference between an electrical wire and your body is it's just like if you lift weights, you get stronger, and you lift more weights and you get even more stronger. If you run energy through your circuits, they develop their capacity. You run more energy through there, they develop even more capacity. And what seemed like a lot of energy at the beginning will soon seem like not that much. So this is to help develop your energy body and to help you process your emotions. Because your emotions that have not been processed will come up to be seen. We talked about that earlier. And so my analogy of like giving cobra breath to somebody, with no practice at all, this is very similar to giving a powerful hallucinogen to somebody who's done no inner work. And when they have a bad trip, that's their emotional complexes coming up to be seen that they're not ready to deal with. So that's why, we teach certain practices to help develop the energy body and to help clear the emotional body, so that when the Kundalini does rise, it's a joyful, ecstatic experience. It's not like a bad trip in an LSD experience. In the 90s, Sunyata and I were talking, because the world, you look out the door, the world's in a crisis situation. So it's like, okay, really the only solution to this crisis situation is changing consciousness, period. And, everybody likes to repeat Einstein, but it's true, basically, to paraphrase, you can't change the world from the state of consciousness that created the problems. So we got to change our consciousness first. And from there, we can evolve the world we live on. Cobra breath, like I said, is the most potent psycho-spiritual technique I know. It will change your consciousness in a very real, tangible, and lasting way. Even Ram Dass said, he would take the LSD with Timothy Leary, and he said, I don't want to live this experience 12 hours a week. I want to live it every day. And that's why he went to India to study. So this is helping you make those changes. Same thing that LSD does, DMT, these other chemicals. We're doing that naturally through your body's internal structure and using the body and the gifts that you were born. the psychedelics can give you a short-term experience. And like even Castaneda, Don Juan said, I gave you these power plants because you're stupid. And I had to prove to you that that world exists, but now I'm going to show you how to get there without them. This is another way of getting there without them. And so that's why it's practice is required. Now, to back up, Sunyata and I talked in the 90s and said, we need to take off some of the safeguards. So first we went from 5 years down to 1 year before you could get Cobra Breath. And then, I've tightened it up to even 6 months. And during that 6 months, if you practice, your structure will get stronger. And then we can communicate. And, if you're experiencing, some emotional healing and some processing, you're able to handle what happens, then we go to the next step and do Cobra Breath. Now, the reason why it's initiator, what the experience of having an initiation from a lineage holder, and this is an excellent question because there's a lot of people out there who are not, who are trying to make a quick buck selling fake Cobra Breath initiation. Okay, and a literal energy is transmitted from person to person. In the West, they would call that the magical current. But it's the spiritual frequency that comes directly from Babaji and then down through that lineage. And it's a hands-on experience. And it was a 2-day ceremony for 8 of us. It was a consecration ceremony. And we prepared our body practicing for 2 days straight before Sunyata laid hands on and passed that current to us. And then in the initiation, I'm transferring that current to the initiate, and that connects them directly back to Babaji and to the members of the lineage. And it affords the protection and the guidance and the containment of that, of those beings. Babaji's there. I can't tell you how many students said, I was going through this crisis or this happened, and then Babaji was there. Or Yogananda ji or Sri Yukteswar, whoever you might tune in with, or whoever. So it's a direct connection, and it gives you an experience in your nervous system of the Cobra Breath. It helps to pattern the Cobra Breath into your nervous system, and it creates this direct connection to the lineage. And that's what separates it from the fake initiations that are out there. And it's not that the mechanics of the Cobra Breath are any different, which they actually are, because it's amazing how there's a safeguard put on the Cobra Breath, and people who aren't allowed to teach it, they always get something wrong, or you hear it wrong. It's amazing. And so little parts are left out or done incorrectly or reversed to protect it. And if you really want to understand the magical current, this is going to sound funny, but on Netflix, there's a series called Midnight Gospel. In episode 3, the guy's talking about this magical current, and he's talking about it more from a Western perspective, but he says it's the exact same thing in the initiations in the East. And once again, it's, because it all comes from the same source. But it's a specific transmission of energy comes directly from Babaji down and then through me and to the initiate.
Give me 1 second. 1 second.
Go ahead.
Okay, you guys, so I'm asking him the question, can you please describe your reality pre and post Cobra Breath, and also some of the things practitioners experience as they go along, and the importance of not getting caught up in the phenomena that come? So for example, I'll give you an example. One time I was practicing and I saw Babaji sitting right in front of me as I was practicing. And he sent light. I saw like diamond white light come from his third eye to my third eye, and then from my heart to my, from his heart to my heart. Now, it's really great that I experienced that, but at the same time, I want him to also explain why it's important not to get too caught up in that phenomena. But so I'm going to give him a chance to read the question, and then he'll answer it for you. And thank you for your patience with this format.
Okay, so that's a good question. My reality pre and post Cobra breath. So when I left home at 17, I was a mess, and basically all I knew from my dysfunctional childhood in a dysfunctional society was this is not the way it's supposed to be. But I had low self-esteem. I had buttons all over. I was quick to anger. I was ignorant enough to be arrogant and to think that I knew a better way for the world in some ways. But there was also enough dysfunction to know that there had to be a better way. And that's really, I didn't seek out to be a teacher. And that's kind of one of the ironies is when Sunyata came to me and said, you have to teach. And I was like, I don't want to. And he's like, I don't care. You have to. And then he told me his story that he didn't want to teach either. And he basically got the same speech from Satyananda. And it's because I've had success with this. And I don't teach from a place. It's not a matter of learning things and regurgitating them. It's a matter of having certain experiences and changing. So who I am today is barely recognizable from that confused, neurotic, frightened child that left home at 17 to go out and figure out the world. And so I can't really go into too much depth. We don't have the time. But I will say that it transformed everything in my being. And I will say, like right now, we in Kriya, we have a saying, it's like man created God in his own image, which people think, wait a second, the Bible says the opposite. But what that means is, for the most part, we decide what it means to be spiritual, and then we go out and find the things that support our thesis, right? So man created God in his own image. So I thought I knew what it meant to be spiritual, blah, blah, blah. But what I'll tell you is when you start experiencing things that are far beyond your imagination, now you know you're getting somewhere. But the first thing I had to do was crush out the ego out of me. So what will happen is we have been imprinted with information from before the womb, even in past lives, of this is who you are, this is what life is, this is what success is, et cetera, et cetera. We build up this ego thinking this is who we are. And so the first thing is that has to be erased. Sunyata would call it, from his generation, erasing the grooves on the record. And once you've erased the grooves on the record, then you can re-groove it with who you really are. Because I didn't get into this, but the essence of this is the only thing in the world that is spiritual is you being you, period. Everything else is fluff. The only thing that's spiritual is you being you, and what you need are the things to help you clear away that which is not you and bring in that which is you. But the first step is to figure out, who are you, right? As they would say in Alice in Wonderland, and that's in your heart. You are what you love. But how many people even know what's in their heart because they've been programmed? And then they've got these lower three chakras, survival, power, sexuality, safety / power, right? So even those who know what's in their heart are being subordinated by these fears and these programs. So it erases the programs. It heals those wounds, erases the programs of what your parents, your preacher, your teacher, your friends, your tribe think you should be. There's a period when all of a sudden you don't know who you are anymore. And that's scary because the fear of the unknown is one of the greatest fears. And so people come and say, to me, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what's real anymore. And I say, congratulations. Because even though it may feel like you're floating in the void, at least you know that you don't know. And really, if you look at it as erasing the grooves on that record or painting the canvas blank, then you can repaint the painting that is you, or you can groove the records with who you really are. So there's this step of deconstruction, and then there's a step of reconstruction. And we all go through that. And it's different because, you may laugh at me for my fears, and I may laugh at you for your fears, because they're your fears, I'm not afraid of them. They're my fears, you're not afraid of them. But we all have to face our fears. That to me is what the dark night of the soul is. So many people make all this, this big mystical thing out of it. Basically, the dark night of the soul is facing your greatest fear. Once you've done that, it's not that you're without fear, it's you face your greatest fear. And from there, by definition, all the other fears are lesser fears. And if you face the greatest one, you know you can face the lesser ones. So it's this process of facing, overcoming your fears and moving beyond. And you can really, by your practice, set the speed that you want to go through it. You want to be like me and like it was super intense, but it went pretty quickly. Or you can make it more harmonious and more relaxed and go at a more steady pace. So we all go through these experiences. Now, there's a good point about don't get caught up in phenomenon. Everybody wants to have this spiritual phenomenon or think, and it's not that. It's this step-by-step progress. And phenomena such as like manifesting ash or, making this appear or that appear, that's not spiritual. That's psychic. And it's only 1 or 2 levels up. And it's just, E equals mc squared. Energy is mass times the speed of light squared. Einstein said this. So there's a relationship between energy and matter. And all it is people have figured out the relationship between energy and matter, and they can make things happen. That doesn't have anything to do with spiritual progress. The only thing that might have to do with spiritual progress, if that's what your heart says, this is what I love, and you do that because that's what you love, then it's spiritual. Otherwise, mostly it's hocus pocus to try and impress people and to get them to give you money or give away their power. The point is you are your own guru. You have the power. And the only phenomena that matters is your growth, your experience, and you own that. And then you live your truth. And part of this clearing of those chakras is you live your truth no matter how society wants you to behave. You live your truth no matter what your friends or your preacher or what's on television or whatever. You listen to your heart and then you live that. Your third eye is open so you can see objectively through the illusion. The illusions we spin about ourselves and the illusion society is spinning at us all the time. And so this is the point of it in the end. And if you don't leave this with anything else, I want you to know that being yourself is what it's all about. Every religion, every mystical system has a term for the true self. And they all want you to get that. And the joy and passion and power that come from being yourself is indescribable. And that's why those who want to control you disempower you. And we don't have time to get into that now, but being yourself is what it's all about. Thank you, love.
So I am going to send Jeff one last question, which is how you can get a hold of him. And, if you're interested in doing the practice, there is the practice that you have to do for 6 months to prepare your body before you can be initiated into Cobra Breath. He actually has a way that you can do that online on his website. I did it in person. I prefer to do it in person, but some people, are in Europe and can't get here, or maybe he's doing it in person in Europe and they can't get there. So it just makes it more attainable. But to do the actual initiation for the Cobra Breath specifically, you and he have to be in the same room. So I'm going to ask him one last question about his website, how to get a hold of him, and also once a month, he has a satsang, and I want him to tell you a little bit about that too. And then we'll invite him on again and close it out. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Right on. So if you want to learn more about this, my website is cobrabreath.org. cobrabreath.org. It's one word. My organization is called the Spiritual Science Society because this is about the science of spirituality, how to predictably and repeatedly change your consciousness. You don't have to believe in anything. I always say, don't believe in me. I don't believe in believing. Take what I teach you, take what you learn anywhere in the world and experience it for yourself. Because if you can't experience it for yourself, they're just selling you something. Okay, so I have a monthly satsang It is on the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Swiss time, which would be 6 hours. So that'd be 1 p.m. on Thursday on the East Coast as of right now. And so there you can ask questions directly of me. I'll speak a little bit. Students can come on as well as others. I have an online program that's available through my website that teaches the first level, the classes that Julie took a long time ago when she practiced, and then she learned Cobra Breath. And so that's available online, and so that people can take it in the comfort of their home. You have access to the videos for 6 months, to the audios and PDFs for life. And then you do the practices. We can communicate via email, and then you would come to a Cobra Breath. I teach multiple times in Europe every year and multiple times in the US every year. And the initiation has to be face-to-face because it's a hands-on transmission of energy. Super beautiful experience. So that's the best way to that's the best way to reach me. So anything else there, dear?
So Jeff can't hear me, so I sent him a note letting him know that we're going to wrap it up today. We're going to invite him back on so that we can all see each other and hear each other, and people can ask questions and whatnot. Much gratitude to him for coming on today. Thank you, Jeff. And yeah, I really, if anybody who's watched this today or will be watching in the future gets moved by this,
Thank you, Janet.
and thinks to themselves, hey, I really want to do this practice, I highly recommend it. It is definitely a game changer. Thank you, everyone, for your patience with this format. And I will let you know the next time that Jeff comes on. Okay? One moment.
So I'll just say, sorry about the technical difficulties, but thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to Julie for inviting me, and the creators of the new earth. How exciting. So
Thank you.
Keep rocking. We'll change the world. Consciousness, love.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Right on. Peace. Love to everyone. Right on.